The Emerald Legacy, Eleanor Vance. A woman whose hands bore the subtle tremors of age, but whose eyes still held a sharp, calculating glint, watched the news report from her modest armchair. Her only son, Marcus, and his ostentatious wife, Serena, were beaming from the screen, cutting a ribbon at the grand opening of Vance Co. Luxury estates. The reporter gushed about their innovative spirit and how they'd transformed a modest family legacy into a modern real estate empire. Eleanor snorted, a dry, humorless sound. Modest family legacy. They meant the Vance Emerald Mine. Of course, a mine she had personally toiled in for decades after her husband's sudden death, extracting every last valuable stone to secure their future. She had legally transferred ownership to Marcus a few years ago, believing it was time to retire and trusting him to manage it for the family. She lived comfortably, but simply, in the small cottage on the edge of what was now his sprawling estate, a cottage she had always called home. A few days later, Marcus and Serena arrived at her door, all smiles and practiced concern. "Mother, darling," Serena cooed, holding a perfumed handkerchief to her nose, as if Eleanor's cottage carried the scent of betrayal. "We have a bit of a crisis. The old mine. It's developed a serious structural issue." Marcus nodded gravely. "We've exhausted all our liquid assets with the new development. Mother, we need to access your trust fund just for a few months to cover the repairs. It's vital for the company, for our future." Eleanor's gaze flickered to Serena's wrist, adorned with a dazzling new diamond watch that seemed to mock the urgency of their plea. She'd seen it advertised in a luxury magazine just last week for a staggering sum. "And what about the annual charity gala you're hosting next month?" she asked, her voice calm. "The one for underserved youth." Serena laughed dismissively. "Oh, that's just a PR stunt, Mother. Purely for appearances. It's all budgeted for separate funds." Eleanor merely smiled, a thin, knowing smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course," she said, retrieving her checkbook. "Family first." After they left, triumphant and oblivious, Eleanor walked to her old, scarred wooden desk. Beneath a stack of faded ledgers, she pulled out a worn leather-bound book. It wasn't a diary, but a meticulously kept record of every emerald extracted from the Vance mine for the past 50 years, along with their unique geological markers. And at the back, tucked into a hidden pocket, was a single, intricately engraved document. She placed a call to her old friend Arthur Finch, a man who still held significant sway in the global gemological community. "Arthur, dear," she began, "it's Eleanor. I have a rather interesting proposition for you. Remember that little hobby of mine, identifying the unique fingerprints of our Vance emeralds?" 2 weeks later, Marcus and Serena were enjoying a lavish dinner with potential investors, boasting about the impeccable provenance of Vance Co. Emeralds displayed prominently in Serena's extravagant necklace. They spoke of the mine's rich history and its guaranteed quality, confident in their deception. Just as Marcus was about to close a multi-million-dollar deal, his phone buzzed. It was a news alert flashing across the screen. Global Gemological Council issues. Alert. Major fraudulent emeralds infiltrating market. Source traced to Vance Co. Marcus's face went pale. Serena gasped, clutching her necklace. The investors, moments ago eager, now eyed them with suspicion. Eleanor, meanwhile, was aboard a private jet, sipping champagne. Arthur Finch sat opposite her, a sly grin on his face. "Your hobby paid off, Eleanor," he said, tapping the news article on his tablet. "Turns out you were right. All the emeralds Marcus and Serena have been selling through Vance Co. are indeed of genuine Vance Mine origin, but they're not from the mine now." Eleanor nodded, a triumphant glint in her eyes. "No, Arthur, those were the emeralds I personally extracted and catalogued over the decades. The structural issue was merely a convenient excuse to stop production and switch to selling off my personal stash, claiming it was fresh yield from a working mine." The document she had hidden in her ledger was a binding contract, drafted by her late husband, granting her exclusive lifetime mineral rights to any emeralds found within the original Vance Mine boundaries, even after the surface, land, and company ownership were transferred. She had merely allowed Marcus to believe he owned everything. Her call to Arthur had initiated a global audit. The unique marker she'd catalogued proved that the new emeralds being sold were, in fact, the very ones she had carefully stored for her retirement, intended to be sold slowly and responsibly. Marcus and Serena had simply taken the entire cash and flooded the market, attributing it to ongoing mining operations, thus devaluing the genuine output and enriching themselves at her expense, all while claiming the mine needed costly repairs they couldn't afford. The news spread like wildfire. Vance Co. Stock plummeted. The investors at dinner pulled out. Lawsuits threatened. Marcus and Serena's luxury estate empire began to crumble before it even truly began. A week later, Marcus and Serena, now haggard and frantic, stood before Eleanor in her humble cottage. They had lost everything: their new mansion, their luxury cars, their reputation. The charity gala was cancelled, and the media was having a field day with their hypocrisy. "Mother, please," Marcus pleaded, tears streaming down his face. "We didn't know you still had the rights. We just needed capital." Eleanor looked at them, not with anger, but with a profound weariness. "You didn't need capital, Marcus. You needed greed. You took my life's work, lied about it, and spent my future on baubles and mansions." She pointed to a small, dusty box on the table. "You left this here when you helped me move a few things. It contains the last of the genuine, newly mined emeralds from the Vance Mine. The ones you claimed were part of a structural crisis." Serena Desprez reached for the box. "Please, Mother, just a few of these. We can salvage something." Eleanor gently closed the lid. "No," she said, her voice firm. "These are mine. And as for the rest, the Global Gemological Council has seized all your Vance Co. stock. The proceeds from my emeralds will be used to establish a new foundation, a real one, for underserved youth, Marcus, the kind you only pretended to care about." She then pulled out a pre-signed document. "I've also legally reclaimed the cottage. Your deed to this land was tied to the mine's active operation under family stewardship. You failed that stewardship spectacularly." With a final, chilling smile, Eleanor stood and walked to her front door, opening it wide. "Now, if you'll excuse me," she said, gesturing outside. "The legal team will be arriving shortly to escort you off my property. And Marcus, dear, I believe you have a lot of explaining to do to the authorities about that structural issue you fabricated." As Marcus and Serena stumbled out, their faces aghast and their dreams shattered, Eleanor closed the door. She looked around her small, familiar cottage. It was dusty and quiet, but for the first time in years, it felt truly, undeniably, hers again. She smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile, and poured herself a cup of tea.